Morning.
Good morning, Patrick. How are you doing on this fine day?
Very good, very good. It's a kind of a quiet day today for supervisors, but tomorrow we do have our board meeting, 1450 Court Street. We should have some interesting things going on. So always stuff going on in the county.
Cool. Well, thanks for tuning in to Patriot State of Mind on mountaintopmedia.com. We're here with the one and only Patrick Henry Jones, District 4 Board of Supervisor. And anyways, you've always got a lot of interesting stuff. I know a lot of people will be interested in getting up to speed and knowing what's going on here locally. And I know there's some stuff that is national, that's, stories that tie into what's going on locally as well. But anyways, you've got the floor.
Well, it's been a wild ride these last 2 years, starting in January of 2023 when I became chair, and we had new supervisors, Kellstrom and Cry, really set the tone because now we finally had a conservative board, which we've never had before. A solid conservative board, and then new policies and ideas started coming forward. And also we started noticing some internal problems at the county where things weren't looking like what they should be, and some concerns and some cover-ups, and we're going to get into one big cover-up today, and there will be more coming out later throughout the year and probably well into next year as well. But in the news, and I know Chris Street had done already some talking about the Mark Zuckerberg testifying before the U.S. House Judiciary Committee. And there it was interesting because Zuckerberg admitted to what we knew all along. Now, one of the things Zuckerberg does, and you've heard about Zuckerbucks, and so for those people that are not familiar with Zuckerbucks, is Mark Zuckerberg, CEO, founder of Facebook, has donated over $400 million into one organization called the CTCL, the Centers for Tech and Civic Life. And then that group then divvies up money to election departments all over the country. And 29 states have banned that kind of money coming in because they felt that it was very partisan, and that the money would come in and it could influences policies and decisions that would help get the vote out for certain demographics. They didn't feel that it was right. And so more than half the states banned this kind of money. But half the states, like California, would accept that money. And back in January when I became chair, at the end of January, we were informed that $1.5 million from the Centers for Tech and Civic Life would be coming to Shasta County Elections Department. And of course, it had a whole series of strings attached. And so in February, we're making decisions on that. Myself and Supervisor Kellstrom voted no to accept that kind of money. Supervisor Garman and Supervisor Rickard wanted to accept it as is with all those strings. And Supervisor Cry at the time, he wanted to accept the money, but he didn't want the strings attached. So he made a counter proposal, and that counter proposal said that when the money would come into our escrow account for the county, that it could not be taken back, and that it would be used for the purchase of a building only. And so that was voted on, and it passed 3-2. And so then that counter proposal would be sent off by staff to the Centers for Tech and Civic Life. So we fast forward a month or two, and I asked our acting CEO, Mary Williams, at the time, hey, did that counter proposal come back? And I didn't think they would accept it, right? I think with those terms, they wouldn't have accepted it. And so she had said, no, it hasn't come back. And I asked again a little bit later, did that counter proposal come back? And nope, didn't come back. And so through the remainder of the year, the entire year of 2023, it didn't come back, or at least we weren't told that it came back, so I assumed that they didn't accept. I figured we'd get a letter or something that would say, hey, we're not going to agree to those terms, thank you very much, but instead, nothing at all. Well, as it turns out, that counterproposal that was supposed to be sent off in February was not sent off. And Kathy Allen Darling, our ROV, Joanna Francescott, along with Mary Williams, our acting CEO, they rewrote the contract. And we have 174 emails that we've uncovered that shows that Kathy Allen and Joanna were saying, hey, if we rewrite it this way, it doesn't have to go back to the board. And Council Ross at the time said, no, it has to go back to the board. 10 times Council Ross, throughout these 174 emails, said, this has to go back to the board. It never went back to the board, and Council Ross didn't inform the board what was occurring. They rewrote the contract and sent it forward, and it was accepted in March of 2023. So the very next month, their own proposal, not ours. They had no authority. It was a breach of contract, malfeasance. They accepted that, and then they just sat on it and kept it quiet. And as chair, I asked about it multiple times and was told, no, nothing has come back. And that was from our acting CEO, Mary Williams. Now, since then...
So let me get this straight. The same people that renegotiated the new terms of the contract that got accepted are the same people that was saying, no, we haven't heard anything back.
All quiet. So there was a variety of different people. I suspect there was at least 10 people within the county that knew about this illegal contract that was written up, sent off, and accepted, and the board was unaware of it. And so that's pretty startling to find that out. We didn't find that out until 2024. And since then, Council Ross and 3 other council our attorneys essentially, have resigned. Kathy Allen has resigned. Mary Williams has resigned. Only Joanna Franciscott still remains. And she had commented on this. Yeah, she was familiar with what they were doing, of course, because her name is listed on the emails, but she took no action to inform the board that this proposal, our counter proposal, was being rewritten. So a lot of insubordination, and this is just on one issue. Now, what's important about this is that now Mark Zuckerberg has admitted, that this money, and he said he regrets that the money was being misused. Now, he doesn't regret it. He said he regrets it, but obviously he knew quite well what this money was doing. It was influencing policies and decisions to help get the vote out for certain demographics. That's what it was for. He was well aware of that because the Centers for Tech and Civic Life knew exactly where to send this money. Now, most interestingly, Joanna Franciscott sat on that committee. She sat on the Centers for Tech and Civic Life committee, dishing out that money to the variety of different ROV offices around the country. She doesn't sit on it now, but she did at that time. And so a lot of stuff there. But what else has been going on behind our backs? What other things have been happening at Shasta County where the board, this new conservative board, was not informed? Now, I can tell you, with the number of resignations that we've had, and I think we've only had 2 firings, and then the rest have all been resignations, and they've all left kind of like rats.
Jumping off the ship
before it's too late, right? But we've had an opportunity now to hire some really great people, and Shasta County can and is attracting great employees. We have a new CEO, Dave Rickert. We have new county council, lead counsel, Joseph Lorimer, very good. We have new support services director, new health and human services director, new health officer, new ROV, and many others. I think we have at least 25 positions that have changed, and a lot of things that have happened behind the scenes. With our past attorneys, for example, there have been entire cases that we were not informed of. Entire cases that would have to come before the board, and the board would make a decision on which direction we would want to go or not, and those were withheld from us. And pretty startling that we were in that condition. But that's when I started on the Shasta County Board of Supervisors in January of 2021. I knew immediately after talking to the then CEO, Matt Pontus, that something was not right. He was not keeping me well informed. He wasn't informing me at all. Very little to no communication whatsoever. And then I learned that Matt Pontus is a convicted felon. And that comes to me from an anonymous source. Pretty shocking that we would hire a person. There's nothing against people that have had a conviction and have come back, but as a CEO for Shasta County, I want to know how that occurred, because normally that would knock you out of the running very, very quickly. One of the other interesting things I found out was it was only about a little more than a year ago, when CEO Rickert came on board, and he'd only been in the office for just a few weeks, and he caught me in the hallway and he said, "Hey, that investigation on the DA is wrapping up," as if I knew of this investigation. I said, "Dave, I don't know that." He assumed I did. He goes, "Well, go talk to Director Support Services, Monica Fugit." So I go talk to the director, and she said, "Yes, this investigation is finishing up." And I said, "Well, I haven't heard of this investigation." And she goes, "Well, we don't tell you about any of the internal investigations." And I said, "Excuse me?" And she said, "Well, we just have a policy. We have not been informing the board of any internal investigation. So any whistleblowers or anything like that would come forward, the board was being withheld all of that information." And I said, well, a new policy obviously is going to take place, and so all that information now will come before the board. And if there's any investigation on any department head or elected official, that not only would that be made available to the board, but it's going to be made public. So the public will know what's happening with their department heads and their elected officials, whether it was good or bad. Those kinds of things had happened too forever. The board was being withheld that kind of information. So I do not know of any of the past investigations, whether they were done correctly or not, whether they were where the investigation started and completed, and was there action, or was it just simply dismissed or covered up? And that's my concern, is that it could be covered up when it should be exposed. And I can tell you now, more investigations are ongoing now for that very reason. And within months, we will see those conclusions, because they're going to now be public information. Now, certain names will be redacted. That is what is required by law, but people will have a very good idea of some of the things that have been happening at Shasta County. None of this would have happened unless I had got elected, Supervisor Kellstrom and Supervisor Cry had gotten elected. None of this type of stuff was happening. The past boards were just simply rubber stamping. And so when you see people saying, oh, there's an exodus of people leaving Shasta County, we can't hire, or we can't retain people, it's simply not true. We've had some bad actors, and they are fleeing the ship, and we are attracting very good, qualified people to replace them that are going to be honest and fair, transparent, and all this stuff, as we say, will come out in the wash. And I know Chair Cry has been chomping at the bit to talk about these things, but some of them are involving personnel, which then we're limited, very limited as to what we can say, and we don't want to obviously cost the county any undue litigation. Even though we want to tell the truth, some of this stuff will not be made public, and some of it will.
So I have a question. Is withholding information that they're supposed to give you, is that illegal? And then I would think that if someone outright lies to you when you ask them a specific question, that is definitely illegal. And who holds someone accountable? Is it the district attorney?
Well,
and who holds the district attorney accountable? Is that like the attorney general, or how do you have any accountability here?
Yeah, and so it's frustrating, right? Because we've had some high-level officials going right up to our acting CEO and to the Register of Voters herself, doing things that are definitely malfeasance, and not being honest with me as to whether this counterproposal was accepted. That's it's definitely insubordination for sure, a fireable offense. When you're talking about an elected official, it's a little different. When an elected official does something, that's really malfeasance, which would go before the grand jury. And if the grand jury finds that it's outrageous enough that they could recommend that person be removed from office if it was violating laws. And in this case, I think it was. So that may come in the future before the grand jury. Time will tell. It'd be nice to hold people accountable for some of these actions and for all the people that are involved in this. And what's funny on this Centers for Tech and Civic Life counter proposal, this is not the first time that I've mentioned these facts. I've mentioned them before, and not one person has come forward and said anything different, which means we're over the target. We have uncovered corruption. And in this particular case, there's no attorney-client privilege to it, so I can freely talk about what occurred, what I saw. And I was there as chair asking those questions and got no answers or the incorrect answer. And, so it leads one to believe what else was going on, right? If they're going to do that on that counter proposal, they would do it on other things as well. And
if you catch somebody doing something wrong once, you better believe they've done it at least 10 other times. I mean, you're not gonna catch somebody every time. I mean, if you catch someone stealing a car, that's probably not the first car they ever stole.
Correct. I mean, there is a first car that a thief will steal, but because these folks have been at it for a little while, it's really difficult to say. But I can say from other things, I would make the assumption that other things have happened, and I think that would be a very fair statement to say. And I think if Chair Cry was here, he would back that up as well from things that he has experienced firsthand. He was in an unusual position because as the new board members were coming in on January of 2023, it was clearly a conservative board, and there are some very powerful people in town that do not like conservative ideas, and they've liked things the way they were because they were financially benefiting from them. And so it was obvious that Mary Rickert and then Tim Garman started to lean very heavy left. Mary Rickert always has been, but it appeared that Tim was moving that direction in January of 2023. This then pushed the recall, because now they only have to turn one board member or remove one board member to have control of the board, and that is why they went after Kevin Cry. If Tim had been strong, Supervisor Garman, if he had been strong and not had given in to the will of the left, the recall would have never happened. So he helped create that. The recall moved forward. He
actually wore a recall Kevin Cry shirt to a board meeting while he was.
He did, and that was not.
He ended up taking it off. Terry Raposa jammed him up pretty hard about that. He ended up taking it off.
Well, in fact, I did talk to Terry right then during our lunch break, and it is you're essentially campaigning on county time, and so that was not allowed, and so he had to remove the shirt. But it showed who he was at that time, and so then this recall that was filled with mistruths, half-truths, or just straight-up lies went forward, but the public didn't buy it, and Kevin remained, and that was probably the most important thing that needed to happen in 2023 and in 2024 was that Kevin remained there. And now we're still getting that work done. I'll be on the board through the remainder of the year, and every meeting is important. We've got lots of things to do and to accomplish, and so I've been very happy with the direction, but we've had a lot of stuff to clean up in the back, and there'll be more investigations that I'll make public coming up fairly soon. Some have occurred to me personally, and I take great offense of that. If you're going to accuse somebody of something, it better be correct, and if it's not, then that's an illegal act of falsely accusing something of somebody. But some of these things have happened, and I'm hopeful that some of these people will be held accountable, and it will get exposed, all in good time. And pretty shocking what was happening. And part of the problem here is because of the media. And no reporting whatsoever, right? We have no more real reporters that dig into it. Just like what we're doing here today, we're having a good conversation of things that have happened. You're not getting that out of the newspaper or Channel 7 or Channel 12. You're not seeing any of that. All those days are over. And so that creates an environment that could be very, very harmful because you don't have quality reporting exposing these things. And I think back when I was on Reading City Council, there was a small farming town in Southern California called Bell, California, and they had no reporting, no TV, no newspaper, and so that council down there just started to pay themselves, and I think their police chief really high amounts of money, I think $22 million to be exact. They were eventually caught, and quite a few of them went to jail, and Bell, California now is forever known for being corrupt, even though that was $22 million. That's what happens when you don't have quality reporting in town. When I was on city council, we had a gas purchase in the city of Reading to the tune of $400 million, $400 million gas purchase. And the city manager at the time and the assistant city manager, they all misled the council as to how that gas would be used and if we were actually purchasing the entire amount of the gas. They said we would only use it if we needed it, and that was not correct. The city of Reading, when I was on council, and I supported it because that's what staff directed us to do, we bought $400 million worth of gas, and our power plants need about 1,800, at least at that time, 1,800 decatherms a day to operate. We had 18,000 decatherms a day that we had to get rid of. And so they started speculating on the public market and day trading that on a daily basis, making profits. The problem is, in those years, speculation of public funds is illegal. It now, fast forward, California legislature has changed the laws to allow cities and counties to speculate with public funds, which I think is a very harmful thing.
But you look at most of these politicians, and they go in there with not very much money, and then in a very short amount of time, them and their family members, their husbands, their brother, all of a sudden they're worth like nothing, and then all of a sudden they're worth 30 million, 40 million, 50 million, getting houses. It's the insider trading is crazy.
Well, and the kickbacks, and we're not unfamiliar. We don't know the level of kickbacks that occurred, but some of these guys aren't going to do this for nothing. And in fact, on that $400 million gas project, one of our electric utility higher-ups, Tim Nichols, was caught taking a Rolex watch from Shell Oil. Now, why is Tim taking a Rolex watch from Shell Oil when we just spent $400 million and bought this gas contract? Now, somebody anonymously emailed me that the FPPC had caught Tim Nichols taking the Rolex, and they'd fined him $5,500. And it was 3 weeks old.
Did he have to give the Rolex back?
No, he had to pay a fine, like a $5,000 fine, and but it was 3 weeks old.
Some of those watches are worth a
lot more than $5,000, right? And he didn't report that watch because he wanted it to be secretive, right? Because people would have been asking, "Hey, how come Shell Oil is giving you a Rolex?" Right? Because you could have reported that, and he should have. He didn't. He was caught. But here's the tricky part on that. That email went out to a variety of places, including the Record Searchlight, 3 weeks earlier. So the Record Searchlight had that information for 3 weeks. No story as to why is Tim Nichols getting a Rolex watch. They're covering for him. And so I called Jenny Espino the day that I saw that. I saw that it was CC'd down at the bottom, and this thing is 3 weeks old. And I said, Jenny, you're covering for this. You're now becoming part of this cover up. And so we got into a yelling contest, and I said, I want to see this on the front page tomorrow morning. And so the following morning, it was on the front page down at the bottom, and I think City Manager Kurt Starman come on board and said, we've got great employees, and Tim paid this fine in a timely manner, and we're just so proud of our employees. We have great employees. And that was the story. And after me pressuring the Record Searchlight, and that was totally false, right? He was taking kickbacks. What else? Other trips, various other things. There was a whistleblower that came forward with exactly the same information. He was terminated. So wrongful termination. I mean, this stuff goes on, but one council member can't fix it. And because the newspaper is going to basically lie, how do you fix these problems? Now, fast forward to today, where we have 3 conservatives on the board, and so this stuff is being addressed and changed for the better. And then we're going to make it available to the public the best that we can within the laws and within the abilities that we have, and uncover it to stop it. And because it continues, it goes on. When I was at the city for 8 years, I assumed everything at the county was great. I knew of troubles that we had at the city. I just figured, the county's doing much better. Looking back, probably not. And again, because if you don't have proper and quality reporting and digging, you're not going to see the truth. And I have now seen the truth over 4 years. I'm very happy to say that we have some good people in-house today that I think will run this ship very well. It always has to be checked, right? You always have to have good people, good board members, making sure that your top executives are doing what they're supposed to, and not being swayed or doing certain things for one group over another. For example, when I was with the city of Reading, the roundabout on Shasta View, that was a condition of approval for the Reading School of the Arts. And if you look at that council report, somewhere back in page 8 or 9 in very small print, full reimbursement agreement. Now, this was a $1.2 million roundabout, and it was a condition of that developer, which is McConnell Foundation. But it was totally paid for by the taxpayers. And what other developers get such, right? I mean, if you're going to do it for McConnell Foundation, you would have to do it for other developers too, right? But no, they were getting and are getting preferential treatment, the tunes of tens of millions. That's just one incident. There are more. And the public is unaware of that. And without good reporting, a good reporter would say, hey, how come you have a full reimbursement agreement on this? This is a condition of their approval, right? I mean, it's a traffic improvement that needs to happen because of their increased traffic. Pretty basic stuff. They didn't pay for it all. And in fact, when that roundabout was done, city manager came to me and said, this roundabout's kind of big. We need to purchase these 4 slivers of property here. They're all owned by McConnell Foundation, and they've already been appraised, so we're going to write them a check for $450,000. So we gave him a check for $450,000 on top of that, and I argued that. And so, yeah, I mean, you can't make this stuff up, but there's a lot more. There is a lot more. That is just one instance. There's a lot more. But when you're by yourself or in a 2-3, that's the condition. And we see that kind of today on the Reading City Council. We have 3 or 4 members from Bethel that are there because of Bethel. And this is a problem, a serious problem, because they're not thinking of the city as a whole. Not at all. They're thinking about decisions that are going to be good for Bethel. And their Seven Mountain Mandates says that. And they can say whatever they want, but the public should be aware that this is a very critical deal. The good news is we have an opportunity this November, coming up very quickly now, to get that majority changed. You've got some good candidates that are not affiliated with these big, powerful organizations like McConnell or Bethel. You have people like
Dr. Danuka.
Dr. Danuka, Paul Danuka. You've got Mike. You've got Mark in there. You've got Mazzano. Mark Mazzano, and so you have some good choices, and I recommend the public really look those over. There's some forums coming up this week, and choose wisely. And if somebody is attending Bethel and they're very defensive about that, think hard about that.
Yeah, it's kind of like the elephant in the room. Sometimes you feel that, and a subject that people want to shy away from because they don't want to ruffle any feathers. And I think that we're in a different time now where sitting on the sidelines that time is over. It's time to get in the game. And I think that it's just as important as having good people in-house as having a well-informed, intelligent public actually calling people out and putting pressure on the getting out there and voting. Obviously, it would be nice to have a transparent voting system, but that's a whole other.
It's a lot of work, and I don't blame the public. I mean, it's tough to go to those meetings. From 2002 to 2015, I went to every single council meeting. I never missed one. I had a perfect attendance, and of course, I was elected for 8 of those years, mayor in 2010. And so that's difficult for the public to do. It's not terribly fun. Some of it's very boring, filled with little bits of excitement here and there. And it's very different when you're out in the seats to the kind of information you get from what you would get, as an elected official. It's very different because I sat at city council meetings for 4 years, and you see things that aren't adding up. They're not making any sense. But I lacked the knowledge in 2002 and 2004 to put 1 and 1 together because you don't have the knowledge. As time goes by, you start seeing things and you start understanding what's been happening here. There's a great article by the Wall Street Journal in 2001 about Redding, California, and what can happen if you don't rein in a philanthropy organization named McConnell Foundation. And that was in 2001, and they spelled it out exactly what was going to happen, and it has. And I encourage people to go back and take a look at that Wall Street Journal story because what they warned about is exactly what's happened, but the average person can't see it.
Are you talking like Agenda 21 type agendas or?
No, so McConnell Foundation, they went from, $80 million to now $800 million in value over time. And how can you do that in a small town? Well, you get hooked up with the city and you start having the city do things for you, rezoning your land, making sure that you're a 501c3 nonprofit, so you're not paying property taxes. So you get you keep your value within land, and then you can rezone lands. The city would rezone to make the land even more valuable, and then the city can do traffic improvements beforehand, before you announce what project that you want to do, so that the traffic circulation flows, so you're not paying for that as well. And those are the kinds of things that they warned about, and that's exactly what's happened some 20 years later. I mean, to a T. And that was a good reporter. He knew what was going to happen. I think when people read that story in 2001, I don't think they believed it. But when I read it, at that time, again, I was new in those years, and it didn't set off any alarm bells to me. But boy, it sure has today. And I see that same potential problem for Bethel now because of the size and the money. And when you have money, then you start having influence and power. And of course, when you have 3 or 4 members of your city council that are going to Bethel, that's a problem. That is a definite problem. It needs to get changed. I think it's going to change this November.
Yeah, so I did an interview with Pastor Brian, Pastor Dave Bryan. Yeah, and out of Glad Tidings. And man, I just met him through the Zoom. I don't know him that well. That's why I forgot his name a little bit. But man, we need more leaders like him who just calls it out for what it is. Yeah. It was an amazing interview, and it's unfortunate we have so many people in positions of leadership with such huge followings that aren't going to call things out for what they are and speak the truth, and are in it for their own self-interest.
Well, and it's really, when it comes down to it, it's money. It's unfortunate, but it's money, and it's a lot of money, and but it can be stopped. And that's the good news, is while it has gone on here, there is an opportunity to stop it. And with the right people, it can happen. And they always say you can't beat City Hall. And when I was there, that was probably pretty true. But again, at the county today, with 3 solid conservatives, you can make that change. And you can change City Hall. You can change your county. And if we're going to change our country, it has to be done at the county level. County by county, it's how we take this thing back and get control. Things are out of control today, and I think most people, when you talk to them, you say this is a very unusual time, a lot of uncertainties, and people think back to the 1960s and various other times where you had a lot of uncertainty as well. And that was before my time, but obviously we're living in a very volatile world. And without good leaders that are when you put people first over money, that's the way to do it. But that's not what's been happening so much throughout the country, and it's disappointing. But we have to do it. We have to take the time out of our lives. If you want to save this country, you can't count on the guy next to you. It's got to be you.
That no one's coming with a cape to save us.
Nope, we have to do it ourselves.
And that's why our founding fathers had the wisdom to design us as bottom up and not top down.
And if people think they can't do it, you might not be able to do it today. When I first started and I ran in city council in 2002, I came in dead last. I didn't know a thing. And then I started doing my homework, started reading every staff report, every agenda, going to every meeting that I could, learning as much as I could to try to be able to affect some change. And while I've only made a little bit of change at the city, we've made a lot of change at the county by having the right people surrounded by you. And I'd like to see that moving forward. And again, the stress is heavy. There's no doubt about that. I'm quite used to it because of my years in office, but I really give a lot of credit to Supervisor Kelstrom and Supervisor Cry, Chair Cry. They have only been in office for a year and a half, and they have withstood the pressures to do what's right when no one's looking, and they've stood tall. And of course, Kelstrom is 6'9". He's always going to stand. He has no choice. There is a little misconception about me and Supervisor Kelstrom. We grew up together. We went to the same schools. We weren't best friends. We weren't in the same classes, but we were in the same schools our entire lives. So we were in grade school, junior high at Parsons, Nova, Enterprise High School, and Shasta College. We went through all that together. So we knew each other. We were friendly, but we weren't. We weren't best friends. He played basketball. I went to work after school. And so I've known him my whole life. And his dad knew my dad for that length of time as well. And his sister knew my sister. But I just didn't know Chris, really well. We never hunted together. He hunted South County. I hunted North County. We hunted and fished our whole lives, but in different parts of the county. And he's still in South County. I'm still in North County.
Yeah, I've seen you guys are both truly conservatives. You're not rhinos, and so you guys think a lot alike. But I've seen you guys vote different on a few different things while I've been down at the meetings. Yeah, and I watch them on lines and everything.
Some of those other council members made a few mistakes. No, we're not going to agree, and I never have any issue with somebody disagreeing. I'm certainly not perfect, and I have my own strong opinions. But each person does their own thing, and I've never or rarely ever gone to any single board member. As I do go to board members to talk about a certain issue, but we're strict with going to one and one only because of the Brown Act. But those are the rules, and we do play by those to see what their thinking is. And usually what I'll do is if I think somebody is way off from my thinking, I'll talk to that person because I think that person is the furthest away from what I think is correct. And a good example of that is with shipping containers. I believe that if you have a half acre, you should have a shipping container, one shipping container. And if you have an acre, maybe you could have two. And if you have a big lot like 10 acres, you could have four. I don't see that as a big problem. I see hundreds of them all over the county. And Supervisor Krellstrom, he in open session, he told a story where he ended up leaving the county because he had two shipping containers, and they forced him, to leave over the thing. So he was very strong on it. But then Supervisor Cry, being in the city of Reading, you don't really have that issue. We don't, there's very few half-acre lots in the city of Reading. There are some, but very few. And this wouldn't apply to the city of Reading. It's only for the unincorporated areas. And so this didn't really affect him. He had nobody complaining about it. And so he's going to look at it differently. And he should, because his district is different than mine. But in my district, people would like to have a shipping container. They're cheap, safe ways to lock up your tools.
You can buy them for, maybe $1,000 to $4,000 or $5,000, depending on the condition, and if it's got electrical, and if it's insulated, and but you can get them compared to buying a building.
Right.
You can lock them up. It'd be pretty hard to steal that thing. I mean, you'd have to have a specific type of truck that delivers them, actually pick it up, and I mean, to be able to build something that would weather store, your tools or whatever it is you need to use, or it's your business, you need extra storage at your business. I mean, for a few $1,000 versus spending $30,000 or something, not everybody can afford that. Right. I wanted to talk to you. I wanted to respond to what you were talking about, how someone left over a couple shipping containers. Well, a friend of mine, I'm not going to name him by name, but he's a patriot, but he does solar and wind. And he was in Anderson, and my dad used to actually be building official of Anderson, and I actually owned a business in Anderson, and they were tyrants with that stuff, man. I'm telling you, they came in and they wanted the blueprints for a desk I built. I built a little desk to my computer on. They go, give me the blueprints to that. And I'm like, I talked to my dad about it. My dad's like, what? That's crazy. I was like, Dad, I got this little desk I built that's got the computer on it, and they want the blueprints. They want to know every screw and every piece of wood and I'm like, it's just, and my dad was like, that's crazy, man. But they harassed me so bad that I finally told him one day, I said, hey, check it out. If you guys keep coming in here on a weekly basis and harassing me, we're just going to leave, and you guys won't get the revenue because we're not going to take this. So my another friend of mine, he was opening up a solar place, and they actually backed off. I couldn't believe it. I was like, that's it. I lost my temper, but they actually backed off, which was really surprising.
You shouldn't have had to do that.
Yeah, so my friend around the same time opened up his solar business. They invested, remodeled this and that. Well, they went and put up a little wind turbine, right? This is just a little solar wind turbine. Is that what you call it?
Right.
Anyways, he put it up on the roof, and they said, no, you can't do that. They wouldn't give him permit, nothing. I mean, they literally wouldn't let him put this little rinky-dink thing that's good for advertising. People see the solar wind or the wind turbine. I can't remember the name of that, but anyways.
And what you're describing.
And then so he actually he left.
Right.
He completely left. And so when you harass people so much and make things so difficult and just be unreasonable and have unreasonable laws and policies, it's very unattractive to people.
Right, and it teaches you not to probably do another one or expand, or because you don't want to have any interaction with resource management typically. And to me, in Shasta County, the resource management department was one very important. Now we have had Paul Hillman has retired from that position. He's gone over to Placer County, and so we'll be recruiting for a new resource manager. And top of my list is a resource manager that's going to work with people, that is going to get projects done and get things accomplished. We're a small county. We have a lot of growth potential. The city still has a lot of growth potential, but for us, we deal in the unincorporated areas of the county, and I want to see some red carpets rolled out and help people, because when the public is successful, then the county is. If the people are not successful, then you don't have a successful county. And so, to me, our job is here to make your lives better. And when you take a look at the state as a whole, if you ask yourself, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? Well, no, because we live in the state of California. But I would say, if you specifically lived in Shasta County, are we better off today than we were 4 years ago just with the county functions? I would say yes. And that's because of the work that we have done and the work that's going to come, and a different perspective when it comes to building, in my opinion. We have a great opportunity right now to find that perfect person, that perfect match for Shasta County that wants to get people moving forward. And, when you're not afraid of your resource management department, then people will come forward and get proper permitting. Right now, there is a ton of unpermitted structures out there because they don't want to deal with resource management. And in some cases, you can't. And a good friend of mine, as everybody knows, is Revere Gensemo, is a classic example of that. He is not the only one. I'm an example of not being able to work with resource management and was shut down for 5 years for no reason. And Revere's was shut down permanently, and then he left and spent all his money elsewhere. Those are the types of things that we're going to try to stop.
So I've been told there's basically two lists of people that were getting approved for jobs and things like that. And basically you were on the list of people that got rubber stamped, or you were on the list of things that could be very difficult. And with my dad has been public works director, he's been city manager, he's been building official all over. He retired multiple times because he couldn't go a month or two without working. So he'd be like, they really need my help in Crescent City, or they need my help in Eureka, and he would go and become city manager, building official, public works director. He wore multiple hats. In Anderson, he was building official, and the public works director actually resigned, and he just says, I can do that job too. He absorbed that job, did both of them, and he did the same thing over in Eureka, and he actually wore 4 different hats over there. My dad was pretty awesome. But anyways, my point is that
hopefully he looked better than you.
He was a great guy. He worked for the county, but he worked for the people. And I've told the story before, but I'll never forget about the day we went fishing on a Sunday, and he went to, and this was when he was building official in Anderson, and he went out of his way to go to a job. We went like 20 minutes up a dirt road, and we went to a job site where they had dug the footing out for a house, and they wanted to pour concrete on a Monday. We went there on a Sunday for my dad to approve them so they could pour concrete the next day at 5 or 5:30 in the morning. And we was like 40 minutes out of the way, 20 minutes each way. And then we went fishing, and I was like, man, how many people that work for the county are going to go on a Sunday to approve a job site so they can go and do that kind of stuff? But my dad...
But that's the kind of person, that we want, right? He took the time out. It made that job move forward and become successful. Otherwise, it would put him behind a day or two, or maybe even a week if the concrete truck wasn't ready or whatever. And so that's the kind of thing that we want to get back to, kind of being more personable. And when you see something that may be unpermitted, tell them about it. Say, hey, we'd like to see that permitted, but then don't give them a heartache over it. Permit the thing that they're working on at that time. Obviously, if it's a safety issue, that could be different. But the way we have been doing things is not the way we're moving forward, and I'm happy about that. And, I know some people have complained, like the sea containers, for example, of some folks in Palisadro that have, $1 million homes, and they are on half-acre lots, and they don't want to see a sea container in their neighbor's yard or such like this.
Put some trees up or some bushes.
Well, but the reality is, what's more intrusive when you see a 2-story, 1,500 square foot garage that the neighbor has, versus a small 20-foot sea container.
I lived on Alta Mesa in my father-in-law's house, and my father-in-law, he was too nice. The neighbor asked, hey, we want to build this shop, right here, and it was right on the fence line, and you have to get permission from the neighbors to do that. And he says, yeah, go ahead. Well, I was the one living there, and there was no more sunrise. He built a 2-story shop right there, and I'm like, I was like, I really used to like the sunrise, and then it blocked my view and everything. And it was kind of like, I was like, man, that's messed up. But anyways.
Well, and there was a structure like that just on Bear Mountain Road where, and one of the neighbors did officially complain of a very large unit, bigger than my house, for his garage. And the county approved that, and it did affect 2 other homes. And one of those homes, which was another $1 million house, is just put up for sale, and he has left. And so sometimes, we have to rein things in, right? I mean, that is that person's property, right? And if he wants to build a super big garage, should we stand in the way? I think there's some times where you do. When it is going to affect your neighbors substantially.
He should have built it where it blocked his sunrise.
Exactly. And so people have always said that, hey, if it's your property, you should be able to build anything you want. And that's really not the case. There are times, for example, the ConnectGen, the wind turbines, they bought that property. They had access to that property. But the public is clearly saying, hey, we don't want to look at these 700-foot tall monsters, and there's severe fire issues with these. And the Shasta County Planning Commission and the Shasta County Board unanimously agreed that, yeah, that isn't appropriate for that area. And yet they did own that land. And so there are times when you are going to disrupt your neighbors to the point where there's no mitigation for it, that we will step in. But I don't believe that a 20 or 40-foot sea container, and there's no stacking, so these are quite short, with a little bit of landscaping, you wouldn't even know that it's there. And again, when you have $1 million house, you're not going to use a sea container because you can afford to buy or build whatever kind of back garage that you want. It's for the rest of us that our homes are $200,000 and $300,000, where we need a little bit of extra storage that's secure for our tools. And I had lots of people coming forward, and so there is a balance there. And again, I think the Board of Supervisors got it right, at least on a 3-2, and then we move forward.
Well, I think that, that's why some people move into those homeowner association neighborhoods, because they really like that,
right,
everything real clean and no gardens in the front yard or whatever they decide, as in those neighborhoods. I think that's great. But within reason, the rest of the people should, there's got to be some regulation. I'm not an anarchist.
Right. Well, with sea containers, for example, they have to be at the back of the property. They have to be painted a neutral color, so they can't be out in the front yard. So we do have some regulations there so people don't take advantage of it. And it's unfortunate because some people will, right? They will go and, if you had no regulation whatsoever, you would have people stacking them and doing various things and causing an eyesore to the neighbor. And so we've tried to be reasonable with that, and I think we have. And then another issue at the county that I wanted to briefly touch on was SB2, and SB2 was in the news today, and I think at the Ninth Circuit they shot it back down, and so I'm not sure if SB2 will be appealed. I'm assuming it will be. But for the moment right now, because we passed a resolution that allows people, the public, with proper California concealed weapon permits, so a valid concealed weapon permit, that is your permission slip to carry on county property. And to my knowledge, we're the only county that has done that. So this is just on county property. You can still continue to come and go, carrying your firearm concealed with a valid concealed weapon permit. I have asked the city of Reading and the other cities to do this same thing. They have not. And the state clearly wants to make CCWs much more difficult. And SB2 was even, our Shasta County Sheriff, Mike Johnson, has come out and said he's not going to enforce SB2, that it is unconstitutional. And it is. The Ninth Circuit is obviously disagreeing with that, which is common with gun-related issues, because they don't see that you have a right to keep and bear arms. They don't believe that. So eventually, I believe this will be appealed all the way up to the state or to the U.S. Supreme Court, and we'll see what happens. And the Constitution says you have a right to keep and bear arms. There's only 2 ways to bear an arm. It's either concealed or openly. And right now in California, that's becoming very difficult, and that is, in fact, in violation of your Second Amendment. The Second Amendment just hasn't been held in this state to the same degree as the other amendments. But we're having some success in court, and so this certainly isn't over. The decision from the Ninth Circuit, wasn't helpful, but it was expected, and then it'll be appealed, and we'll see what happens. So, I created that resolution. I had help with the California Rifle and Pistol Association. We found a loophole within SB 2, Section, I think, 171B4, that says a local governing body that is in control of security of government buildings, local government buildings, can issue written permission. And so our resolution says that if you're a holder of a valid concealed weapon permit, a California concealed weapon permit, that is your permission slip to carry on county property. So essentially on county property, it's the same as going back before January 1st of this year when SB 2 passed. So that's what's happening right now with SB 2.
Yeah, well, that's great because, I just read some statistics on your house is less likely to get broken into if you have a flag, that be American flag, because they figure you're more likely to carry a gun.
Yeah.
And so statistics show over and over and over again, even though the media portrays a different reality than what reality is,
right,
is that the more responsible gun owners that are armed, the less crime, and you don't see these people going and shooting places up, and they always go to a gun-free zone.
Right.
So anyways, I think that's great, and I feel a lot safer when I'm around people that are law-abiding, responsible gun owners.
Absolutely, and in the states, most states have open carry, and it does reduce crime. And when you see somebody with a gun, you tend to leave them alone, and it works.
And whether it's legal or illegal or unlawful, however you look at it, criminals don't follow the rules or the laws, so they're going to do whatever they do. So,
well, we just had a case here last week with Rob Milton. He was already prohibited. And somehow he got himself a firearm, and he shot his neighbor for no reason. It looks like a 71-year-old man shot dead.
He didn't wait his 10 days?
Apparently not. And, unfortunately, I knew him back in the day, and he was a normal individual with a wife and family, and he was normal. But looking at his mugshots, clearly something has changed with him, his body appearance. He's very thin. It appears that drugs have been a part of his life for a while. But he was restricted, and those laws didn't do anything. But he could have just as easily as stabbed his neighbor and killed him, then shot him. And so when you have a person like that where their behavior is clearly changed, he should have sought help. His family should have intervened, because clearly he is not the person that he was for years. And no action was taken, or not enough action. The family probably did make attempts, but obviously not enough. And we have now two major issues: one person dead, obviously, and affecting that entire family, and the other family is going to be affected as well now, because we have a person that's going to be incarcerated for a long time and cost taxpayers a lot of money, all unnecessary. And so a sad situation there.
So we're just about out of time, and I know that you're not the ROV, and I don't know, how much you can tell us or what you actually know, but it seems to be that voter integrity is probably one of our sacred and most important things, one of our most sacred rights and most important things that we have, and it's been a major battle trying to get voter transparency. I mean, most of the countries in the world have voter ID. A lot of them hand count, and it seems like, I don't know. Are we just going to be stuck in doing things the same way we have? I know this is a long game. I know change isn't going to come overnight, but is there any insight? People are asking me all the time, hey, what's going on with this? And so...
Well, we have an opportunity here. This is the opportunity, really. In fact, I think one of the reasons that people fought so hard to keep Kevin Cry in office was because this board would get to pick the next ROV. It was a super important decision. The past culture was just a confrontational culture at the ROV. And the last ROV was pushing people further and further back away from any kind of meaningful observation and losing trust with the voters, clearly. And when I asked ROV Allen, how are you going to restore trust? Because there's some simple, easy ways to do that. She said it's not her job to do that. Thomas Toller is going to be very different. I think he's going to do everything in his power to have the most transparent election that we can. Thomas is a real patriot. He believes in this country, and he believes in everybody's vote should count correctly. He also is an attorney, and he knows the laws, and he's going to follow every law that he must. But there's still lots of things that he is going to do that is going to allow the public to be able to witness things that we've never been able to witness, to mark down, to keep track and make notes of things that we have not been able to do in the past. And I mean from the very start to the very finish. And so while would I like to see him do more? Yes. And are we going to have a fair election across the entire country? No. Are we going to have a safe and fair election in Shasta County? I think we've got a good chance of doing that because the way that it's going to be done. There's going to be lots of eyes on this election in a manner that hasn't happened before. And so I think we've got the right guy at that position. He's only been in the office for 2 months, and so he's done a lot of work to prepare for this very major election. And then I think many more changes will come thereafter. Obviously, when I was chair, I made the motion to get rid of the Dominion contract and go to hand counting, only to have ROV Allen go to Sacramento and say you should pass a law restricting this board from doing that, counterproductive to the will of this board. I just had a reporter come to speak to me and do a report last week from the Netherlands, and they hand count there. And this is not the first time I've had reporters come halfway around the world. I've had them come around from England and elsewhere, and now the Netherlands. And the question that I asked them was, why would you take the time to come all the way around the world to interview me here in Shasta County because we got rid of the Dominion voting machines? Why would you spend that kind of time and money to do that? Now, both of these reporters did not give me any answer to that, but clearly we are on to something here in Shasta County. We are attempting to have safe, fair elections because we haven't not had that in the past. I guarantee you that. And I am more solid on that than anything in my life that we have not. What has happened, there has been manipulation, and it's got to stop.
I don't think you'd see so much pushback. And I mean, who cares about Shasta County? We're just this little, well, the area's somewhat large, but a pretty small population when you look at California as a whole.
Well, and early on, I thought that. I thought, nothing should happen wrong here in Shasta County. We don't matter, right? We don't matter. But the reality is I was wrong, that elections and your country is won and lost at the county level. So the county level is where things happen. And if one county gets it right, the others are going to want to do it. In fact, the whole country is going to want to do it. It is absolutely insane that most counties throughout the United States use one of 3 proprietary software systems, and we cannot look at them. It's illegal. Just ask Tina Peters. When you attempt to do what's right to make sure that the information is right, and then she is cited with felonies. And it's these machines, if they would allow us to look at them and analyze them thoroughly to make sure that they are correct, it would be one thing. But they will not let us do that, which tells me the Secretary of States across this country, but particularly here in California, they are fraudulent.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to hear that hopefully we're going in the right direction. That's been a huge issue, talking about restoring trust with hopefully I've met Tom. I think Tom is a good person. Kathy and I had a funny relationship. I would ask her a question and she goes, "You want me to come down and tell you how to run your business, John? Start telling you what to do?" I go, "Whoa." I go, yeah. You work for me. My business is my business, and I'm just asking a simple question.
Yeah, and I never had a good relationship with Kathy, and and the board oversees the elections, and we can do canvassing as well. And
there was a lot of stuff going on behind your guys' back with them.
Well, you could see just with this counterproposal in the CTC, you could see what Kathy was doing. She was counterproductive to the will of the board. And in fact, I believe she broke the law. And that gives you a good insight as to what we had before and what we have today. I think it's a night and day difference. And so I'm looking forward to this election cycle and ones coming up in the future. Is everything going to be perfect? Not yet. But I think it's going to be far better, a lot more eyes on, a lot more transparency. And so I'm going to be down there a lot more myself. I'm not running in any race right now, so I feel comfortable about doing that. And Tom's a smart guy, and he wants to make sure that every vote is counted correctly.
Does the ROV do they need more poll workers
Yes.
and more election observers?
Yeah, they need all that right now, and so definitely go down to the clerk's office, give a call. We need more people now, and so they'll get you signed up, and come on down. It's time.
I think if you go to Shasta County Registrar of Voters,
Right.
it can say sign up here,
Right.
and I think you can do it all online, or you can go and show up in person.
Yeah,
you know,
and
either-
I think also Dr. Laura Hobbs was doing some work on that as well too. So get a hold of her; she's online as well. And we want to get people involved more. And even if you only do a small amount of time, the more eyes on, the better. Once ballots are taken out of those envelopes, the counting of ballots should be a very public thing. Should be very public, and they're all there's no names on those ballots. You can't see one ballot from another. We'd really like people to really start watching and help us keep eyes on. And there's some good training going on in Shasta County right now. So get a hold of us, and let's have a great election.
All right. Is there any closing thoughts you want to say before we wrap it up here?
Well, just thank you, John, for all that you do, and thanks for having me on. This is the way we get information out that you wouldn't see anywhere else. You don't see it in the local newspaper or TV, and so this is a great opportunity to get stuff out the best that we can. And I know you'll be involving other supervisors, and we all have our different ideas. And so if we're going to take our country back, it has to be done through different ways controlling the media. This is one of those ways.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Patrick, so
Alrighty.
much.
Thanks, John.
I appreciate you.
Appreciate it.
And if anybody else wants to come on here, just reach out to me. I'm online. You can find me multiple ways. Most people around here know how to get a hold of me. But if I don't care if you disagree with a lot I have to say, or you agree with what I have to say, if you want to get out there, I'd love to interview whoever. And I'll give you, if you watch my interviews, I don't attack people. So anyways, I'll give you a free and fair interview.
Awesome.
All right.